Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of Wine Wednesday. I'm with my good friend Ted Willis.
Hello.
YouTuber, world traveler extraordinaire. We are drinking, we can cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. We are drinking Big House Wine Company, and I chose it because it has Al Capone on the cover. And I don't really know how that relates to you, and the fact I thought it was kind of like movie-ish.
Al Capone is a character from a movie, and I make videos.
Yeah,
Connection.
exactly. That was my that's as close as it got.
And I like wine.
And you like wine.
So it works.
How's it going, Ted?
It's going fantastic. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be drinking wine.
Did you do any wine tasting on your travels? Was there like a best country for wine?
Yeah, France and Spain are awesome for wine. And so I did taste some there. But then I was in Italy, and there was like all these wine tours through Tuscany, and I was like, oh, that'd be so awesome. And then I thought about it, and I was traveling alone, and...
You want to get hammered by...
Well, no, it was just like a wine tour through Tuscany by yourself sounded way more depressing than fun. So I decided to like put that in the back pocket for a romantic getaway later.
I feel that.
Yeah.
So tell us how many countries was it?
I went to 15 countries in 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 15 countries and just a snapshot, what were all the different countries that you went to?
Like, you want me to list them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know them all?
I do know them all.
Okay.
So, I started in the UK, then I went to Spain, then France, then Italy, then Greece. I don't even count Turkey.
Euro trip over here.
Yeah, Euro trip. Then I left Greece and went to the Philippines, and then I went to Hong Kong, and then Japan. Went back to the Philippines. Then I went to Taiwan. And then I went back to Europe.
Oh my lord. Wait, where in Europe did you go the second time?
So I landed back in London, and then I went to Belgium, then the Netherlands, then Germany, then Czech Republic, and then Denmark.
Oh my god.
And then I went back to the UK, and then I went to Ireland. So I guess that's 16 countries. Yeah.
And then you went to New York.
And then I flew back to New York City for a little bit.
Wow. Okay, what made you go from Europe to the Eastern nations back to Europe again? What was the flow? Was that intentionally drawn out ahead of time? Or?
No, so that's like why, if you look at the map and the itinerary that I took on my trip, it's super scatterbrained and all over the place because I didn't really have a full plan when I started it. And I went to Europe, and then I was like, okay, so my big focus of my trip was to seek out these little documentary stories that I was filming along the way.
Okay.
And I was trying to allow those stories, those leads, to lead the whole trip. So I would go to the places where I had connections, where I saw the best potential for stories happening, and then I would go there. So when I was in Europe the first time, I connected with some people that were helping refugees and knew a lot about the refugee issues going on.
Like
I started
the Syrian refugee crisis.
Yeah, so well, it's more than just Syria, but just North Africa, Middle East refugees fleeing to Europe. And so I hung out with some people in France that were hosting a refugee in their home, and I got to hear their story and make a video about it. And then I was connected to people in the Philippines, and I knew there were some cool organizations there that I wanted to learn about, so I went there. But while I was in the Philippines and exploring around Asia, I just wanted to learn more about the refugees. I felt like that box wasn't checked, and I wanted to do some more digging there. So that's why I ended up going back to Europe, and I met up with some new friends in Germany that were caring for refugees living there, and got to hear some stories.
How did you meet these people? Was it like like a friend connected you to their friend, and it just kind of spider crawled its way out into this web of connections, or was it people you actively were seeking out online?
It was both. It was, I mean, in general, I was meeting people through like networks, online networks like couchsurfing, using Instagram, using my YouTube channel. I met up and stayed with subscribers like at their house, and they showed me around their city.
That's pretty dope.
It was really dope. And then I would send out posts on Facebook like, hey, I'm going to Germany, does anybody have any friends there that they could connect me with? This is kind of the project I'm doing. I would love any connections. And so I would do that as well. And through all those means is how I ended up connecting with the various people.
That's pretty wild, man. I actually, after watching your channel, I actually was not aware that that was what was the driving force behind your destination and your tour. Sorry, I'm a band guy. I think of everything in tours. What was kind of like
tour?
What was kind of like your preparation in order for this trip? Like mentally, emotionally, financially, like the way I've been telling, like, and I promoted this tonight, was like you left your job, you left your family, you left your friends, you like just felt this calling to go take a year off or whatever, a couple months off, and just travel and just take you where the wind goes. I think so many people, myself included, have that kind of dream and that aspiration, but there's something like really like exciting and terrifying at the same time. So maybe something in your preparation could help someone like myself overcome the mental hurdles.
Yeah, well, it was definitely a long process. So from the idea being planted of I'd like to travel to me actually leaving was about a year and a half. But most of that time was spent plotting out what the YouTube channel could look like, what kind of content I would be wanting to do, because that was always partnered with the trip. That was always
the heart and soul.
Yeah, I always wanted. I didn't want to just travel. I wanted to be creating content. I wanted to be telling stories, and so trying to figure out the best format for that.
Right. And you have a history, and anyone doesn't know, he has a history of being like a documentarian. So he's got a couple documentaries out.
So I make videos professionally. I worked at a website for a while and was making videos for them, and so that's like my craft. That's what I do, and I wanted to have this opportunity to create videos that I cared about, doing the things I wanted to do, and see where it would take me. And so, long story short, I figured out, like, okay, I want to do this, like, travel YouTube channel that's focused on culture. And, okay, what does it take to travel? And then I researched, okay, there's these other people that without doing a YouTube channel, they quit their jobs and traveled for a year for anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000. That seems super doable.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, there's the goal financially, what I need to save up to do that. And I basically had a year where my goal was to save $20,000, and I started saving really aggressively. And so what it takes to do that is, like, you assess all of your finances and all of your expenses, and it's like, okay, well, what don't I need? And don't splurge on anything else. And yeah, I was very blessed. I didn't have student loans that I was worried about paying off, didn't have a ton of debt, had a job that paid pretty well, and so I was very privileged and blessed to even be able to have that dream, So if
you didn't have your route planned out ahead of time, did you not look into like cheaper hotels and flights and things like that, or is that something like going along you're always looking for affordable flights and things like that?
Yeah, I was always looking for affordable stuff, and it's actually booking flights is actually cheapest to book a flight about 6 weeks before you fly. So that's not really a ton of heads up. And you can book stuff like a month in advance, and find really good deals. You can book stuff for super last minute. It's all about flexibility in when you're willing to leave and where you're willing to go.
Right.
So like I decided to go to Taiwan, not because it was like specifically on my list or because I knew people there, but because the flight from the Philippines to Taiwan was $30.
$30?
$30, yeah.
That's
so
nothing.
I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to go to Taiwan before I fly back to Europe.
My movie ticket, me and my girlfriend this weekend, was $32, something like that.
See, it would have been cheaper for you to fly
to Taiwan. Assuming I had teleported to the Philippines first.
But yeah, no, like in America, we have this idea that travel is really expensive because the corporate piggies, like that's what, but we are marketed to think like, okay, travel needs to be comfortable, travel needs to be this vacation, it's like luxurious, and that's just not true. If you think of travel as like, okay, I need to get to a destination and then live there cheaply, like there's people living all over the world and they're not living at 5-star hotels eating really fancy food. They're going to the grocery store, they're paying rent or living in an affordable house. So if you try to think like living like a local in those places, then your cost of living is going to be cheaper.
So were you like not eating out every night or like going to like these super touristy locations? Were you like just Airbnb-ing it and doing what the locals do? Or
yeah, I would try to. I didn't like doing touristy stuff. I did touristy stuff with my family. I met up with them in Spain for a couple weeks, and that was all fine and good. But by the end of that, I was like so over the touristy thing.
Yeah.
And so I would try to stay with locals, which is cheaper or even free. And I would want to make food with people, or go to the places that they would go, not the touristy spots.
Do they eat weird shit, or do they eat normal?
I mean, what's normal? It depends on the country, you know? Yeah.
Were you eating like bugs in the Philippines? And
I didn't eat any bugs. The weirdest thing I ate was I had a couple weird things, but one of the weirdest things I ate was a duck fetus.
What?
I didn't tell you about this? Yeah, well, so Derek hasn't gotten to that point in the vlogs. You guys can binge watch if you go to my YouTube channel.
I watched 12 episodes today, and I've seen about 10, and then I hand-selected about 10 episodes.
Yeah, it's alright. It's alright. So in the Philippines, there's an episode where I eat, it's called balut, and it's fermented. So it's a duck fetus. So it's a fertilized duck egg where there's a baby duck growing inside.
Oh my god, that's
and then they
horrific.
Ferment it and cook it, and then it's served hot. And you crack the shell open a little bit, and you pour some vinegar in and some salt, and then you drink the soup they call it. And then you unpeel the shell like a hard-boiled egg. And then you dig in. And
is there little bones and things?
Yeah. It's a little crunchy. You can get it aged. It's like wine. You can have it aged different.
Well, how aged do you want? Do you want 3rd trimester duck egg?
Oh yeah. Well, it's definitely pretty developed, but it's 18 weeks, or you can get 16 weeks, and it's
which one's better? Which one's the real?
Well, it depends on what your flavor preference is. How feathery do you want your? So yeah, mine was medium feathery. It wasn't too crunchy. The bones are pretty soft still until it gets really almost hatching.
Oh, okay, so was it good or not? What is it?
It's kind of like a mix between chicken and egg. It's a little meaty, but still egg-like.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's, I feel no. I was gonna say, I feel that's somewhat healthy for you because you got the stem cells and the blastomas and on all the juicy proteins of an embryo.
I feel there's a South Park episode where they eat fetuses.
Yeah, where Christopher Reeves.
Is that where you're getting all this idea that it's healthy?
My science background.
I don't know.
I'm trying to decide if it's... But it doesn't matter because your digestive system just breaks it down and turns it to proteins anyway, so it's not like you're injecting stem cells into your body. I don't know.
I wasn't thinking through that while I was eating the duck fetus.
No? You just went for the challenge?
I was like, oh, bet this could make for some good views.
So, I'm sure. I can't wait till I get to that video.
Yeah, it was fun.
Well, what was something that... So you did prepare a little bit, right? You did get, like, you might not have prepared for the various places you stayed, or even the airlines, but you did, like, I don't know, backpacking and things like that. Was there anything that you wish you had prepared for? Was there anything unexpected that you weren't, like, didn't think would happen?
I mean, I felt like pretty prepared as far as the things I packed. I was very minimalist in what I brought, but I still had things for pretty much all climates, from tropical to freezing. Nothing like sub-zero, but cold. I think the one thing that I didn't anticipate that ended up being a real challenge was how exhausting just the act of switching countries is. Because
I was time zone shifts?
No, like culture shifts. So I was used to, I traveled a lot for work, you know, and so, but there's a difference between taking a 5-hour flight from Phoenix to New York, and you get off the flight and you still speak the same language, you still use the same currency, you know how things work, you know what you're doing. Like, I'd been to New York before even, so I like knew how to navigate things. It's like, yeah, I was tired from the day of traveling, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But taking a 5-hour flight from, I don't know, London to Spain, it's not even 5 hours, but it's really dramatic difference. The time isn't different, but the language is different, the currency is different, the way people do life is different, like the times things are open or closed.
I would feel like Europe is fairly ubiquitous, though.
It's not.
Really?
It's not.
It's it's not like going from state to state in the U.S.
No, definitely not. You drive 2 hours and you've crossed through 3 different languages, and those are often different cultures, and not everybody's on the euro, and things cost different, and there's different manners and different ways of doing life that you have to navigate. And then it's even more dramatic when you go to Asia, and I was traveling really fast.
Yeah.
I think I averaged maybe 5 days in a city before I would go to a new city, and that just ends up being really, really taxing, and I didn't anticipate that before. And I think I would encourage people that are planning on traveling to travel a lot slower than I did. So spend more time in one place. I think a minimum, when I do this again, because I want to do it again to some degree, a minimum for me would be to stay in one bed for a week.
Was it because you were chasing stories? Is that why you were moving so quickly? Or is it because you were so, like, amped up?
Yeah, it was more like amped up. I'm like, oh, I'm in Europe. I need to go see all this stuff. And I need to go do all these things. And I want to meet this person in this city next week, but I also want to see Amsterdam. And, I'm in the Netherlands, so let's go see these other cities too. And there's this like FOMO. So, and that was the most bizarre thing, because I'm like,
FOMO. But you're by yourself, right?
Right, I'm by myself, but then I'm like, oh, I need to go, there's so much to see, and then you feel this pressure to go take advantage of it, and then,
road trip,
and which is fine, a lot of people do that if they go on a trip for a couple weeks, but when you're living that for months, I burnt myself out, and that's why I eventually came home, is because I was finding myself getting to new cities that I had been excited about before, and then I would be there and be like, I literally don't care. I'm gonna go get a coffee and sit.
Damn. So was the deciding factor to end your trip, was it because of, were you like financially strained and you had to call it quits, or was it because you were so overwhelmed by how much you've seen and experienced that you're like, well, I'm no longer, like, I'm in the sensory overload situation, so therefore, what's the point of going on if I can't enjoy or soak in the experience. I'm now just like this. I'm now like a piece of rubber where just all these awesome experiences just aren't being absorbed into me.
Yeah. No, it was definitely the latter. I felt like it was sensory overload to the max, and I felt like a sponge that was completely saturated and just simply couldn't absorb anymore. And I didn't have enough downtime to process the previous things, because it's when you travel like that, and this is what's so amazing about travel. And what I love is like every day I would wake up and be guaranteed that I would see, taste, and experience things that I had never experienced before in my life.
Right.
And every day.
So what initially was propelling you to move so fast through these cities is ultimately what led for you to essentially get burnt out at the end and be like, oh no, I did it to too much of an extent.
Yeah, I was just, it was burnout. And I tried to slow down at the end to process things, and it was great. I mean, I enjoyed everything, for sure.
Yeah,
but it got to the point where I ended up getting more excited about exploring what the next phase of life could be, and recognizing that I needed to take some downtime and reassess instead of just jumping to the next country because I felt like I should.
You know what this reminds me of? Completely, like, sort of off topic, and I apologize, but I was watching the Foo Fighters documentary the other day. And it's a whatever documentary, but there's this point to it where their drummer, like the band, like the cliche rock band story where they start partying too much and like the drummer goes no D's and he's in a coma for like a month or something like that. And they talk to him and they're like, what led to that? And he's like, no, my life wasn't bad, my life was great. He's like, the thing was, like, when I'm going out and like I'm like being on stage is like the greatest feeling in the world, but when you have that every single day, it starts losing its rush and its adrenaline. And so it was like I felt like having to play like drunk would make it a little bit more exciting than using coke, and so he's talking about how he started using drugs to like enhance the high that he was already on because there was no way to continually get that buzz and that feedback of like the sensory that he had experienced. So it's unrelated, but it's related in the sense that it's like you felt like you reached this level of high to the point that the high was no longer being absorbed or impacted, and so you kind of had to leave it out. So
so instead of resorting to drugs and cocaine and all those things, I decided to just take a break. So that's the difference, kids. Don't do drugs.
Yeah, if you're not a world famous rock band.
And if you're an adult, you can drink some wine.
Amen. Okay, one of the things I know you didn't expect, and this is one of the few times I actually reached out and messaged you, thank you, during your travels was, so you left kind of, okay. Cheers, guys.
We all know where this is going, Derek.
You know where this is going.
I have to drive home, so I'm going to be responsible and not drink too much.
Usually Anna makes dinner afterwards so you can sober up. But, I mean, my last guest was vegan, so Anna was like...
I didn't know that was part of the deal. I wouldn't have eaten dinner before.
Sorry. So Rio's really the only one who's benefited from it. But, I was going to talk about... When I messaged you, was you left during the height. Well, okay, I don't know if it's still the height. The Trump travel ban took effect in I think it was February, pretty soon after he took office, and I think you were in Turkey at the time, and your planes had grounded, and you're sending out a message, not knowing you didn't know what was going on in American politics. You're like, nope, after this, I'm out, I'm going to Europe. And I remember messaging you, and you're like, yeah, I don't know why, my planes are landed, I don't know what's going on, but they're not letting me leave. And I was like, yo, just a heads up, this is what's going on in the U.S., there's a travel ban going on. So did you have any effects from the political climate of America? Did that follow you into your European trip? I don't want to be an egomaniac and say America is this spectacle for the world, but I'm pretty sure the rest of the world is aware of.
Yeah, no, I think in general, most of the world pays very close attention to what happens in America, and especially in Europe. And so I started my trip before